Okie dokie, here we go. A very good morning to you, Grenada, and the rest of the world. It is the second day of August, 2019. Welcome to today's edition of Gudday Grenada. Yes, sirree, another beautiful morning here on the Spice Island, boy. Got another great program lined up for you. Hope you can make it through the whole hour without any hiccups along the way. And just in case there are, remember, you can always get back to Facebook and see it maybe about 5 minutes or so after we wrap it up here, which is generally at 10 o'clock. Yeah, I confess, we've been going a little bit over time, but we're going to try and keep it as close as possible to 1 hour this morning. I see that TF Richards, hello there, TF, is saying good morning, family. But TF, you're number 3 this morning. Fitzroy Adams is actually number 2. And guess who? Guess who? She's competing with you guys. Donna Joseph is saying good morning to everyone on the beat today. I'm early. Yes, girl, you're early. But it's nice to see all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's take a look at this morning's rundown, okay? We're going to begin by asking the question, where are the genuinely good Christian people in our NNP government? That's a question that was asked yesterday by our good buddy, Ray Roberts. Ray sent me a piece which was published on the GRENADABROADCAST.com website overnight. So you can go there and read along with me, or you can go after the program's over and take a look. You might want to reread it yourself. The national report. Yeah, we do have one this morning. And it's going to be the last one, I imagine, that you're going to be hearing until Wednesday of next week, because Monday is a holiday. So they're not going to be at work, the GIS that is. And on Tuesday, when they are back at work, hopefully, they'll send it to me late on Tuesday evening. So that means you're not going to be hearing the national report until Wednesday of next week. Oh my goodness. Then, after the national report, we do have a couple of pieces for you, a couple of videos. The first one is an interview which I did just a couple of days ago with Margaret Hughes. Margaret is the wife of the late journalist Alister Hughes. And before he died, Alister wrote, he documented his memoirs, and she has now published that in a book which is titled Eyewitness to History. You're going to be hearing that conversation. And finally, you know, there are a lot of videos going around on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and everything out there. And I pulled out one which I have captioned here, a reflection of corruption in Grenada. Gentleman is speaking about corruption in Africa, okay? But as you listen to that, you'll see a lot of parallels with what's going on here in Grenada. So, enough said. Let us now get down to business. All right? Okay. Oh, before I do that, I need to give you a little alert on the weather. I received something in the wee hours of this morning from the meteorological office. They're saying that an elongated low-pressure system located over the central tropical Atlantic Ocean about midway between the Cabo Verde Islands and the Lesser Antilles, is producing limited shower and thunderstorm activity. Some slow development of the system is possible, and a tropical depression could form well east of the Lesser Antilles by early next week, while the system moves west-northwestwards at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Upper-level winds are forecast to become less conducive for development by Tuesday and Wednesday as the system approaches the Leeward Islands. Okay? So that may go a little bit to the north of us. They say that the system has a low chance, only 20% or so, of becoming a tropical cyclone within the next 48 hours. And the Met Office promises that they will continue to monitor the development of this area of low pressure. All right? Now, here we go. Here we go. The following piece was published last night on GRENADABROADCAST.com. It is written by Ray Roberts, and it is captioned, "Where are the genuinely good Christian people in our NNP government?" I quote, "History will not only record Dr. Mitchell and his new National Party government as the most dominant political party in Grenadian politics, but also the government which turned a blind eye to state corruption and the blatant destruction of all state institutions." Dr. Mitchell's soap opera press conference on Tuesday, July 30th, endeavored to make wrongdoing look right. And to save face, he represented the most shameful and undignified behavior of a national leader. None of the other 7 prime ministers who have served Grenada since independence has stooped so low, defending someone who has admitted to dishonesty and most painfully demonstrated that he is unrepentant. The Prime Minister's combative response in defending this admitted fraudster sends a message that his government does not punish thieves. Hence, the chosen elites and cronies are on the rampage, feasting and harvesting, while much of our population is asleep. From the Citizenship by Investment program to oil exploration contracts, marketing board scandal, the Victoria Shrimp Farm scandal, to Sheldon Scott's huge cell phone bills, and the few privileged security officers receiving hefty paychecks in lieu of holiday pay. These are just a few of the very long list of controversial issues which are lacking in transparency. How does any decent leader and government tolerate in their midst a former government senator and minister and the host of the party's premier media program publicly admitting to state fraud, and the Prime Minister does absolutely nothing about it? Based on Scott's $20,000 a month phone bill, it works out that he could have accumulated a bill of $240,000 a year. And for the almost 4 years since he left government, an overall giant bill of close to $800,000. to be paid by taxpayers. In 2013, Dr. Mitchell asked the same workers and taxpayers to make huge sacrifices as part of his homegrown program to save Grenada from economic collapse. Workers obliged, paying more taxes on just about every product, as well as more personal income tax. And today, a member of the NNP who steals from the government consolidated fund seems certain to escape punishment. Where are the genuinely good Christian people in our government? Not a single member of the Mitchell cabinet has condemned Scott's dishonesty. Former General Secretary of the Trade Union Council and now Minister of International Business, Oliver Joseph, made Scott's dishonesty look acceptable during his press conference, blaming public servants and Digicel. Joseph completely ignored calls for an independent investigation to identify the loopholes and make recommendations for the future. Having spent 38 years in the public service, beginning on January 3rd, 1975, Dr. Mitchell and his government stand out as the one group that puts party loyalty before everything else. He has ignored all genuine calls for transparency in government. At one point, the Integrity Commission was chaired by the wife of the Attorney General. Then you had the husband of a senior minister in government heading the agency running the Citizenship by Investment program. And the husband of another senior minister heading the police investigating arm, the FIU. And the wife of yet another minister as an agent in the Citizenship by Investment program. How does the Prime Minister not see all of these conflicts of interest? Dr. Mitchell is indeed a clever imposter. Under his leadership, Grenada has signed more Commonwealth and Organization of American States protocols agreeing to ensure good governance. And his parliament has approved many pieces of legislation to fight corruption. Shamefully, the Integrity in Public Life Act has championed most of it, fooling these international organizations. The reality is, Grenada has institutionalized corruption. The corruption juice is sweet. Therefore, sanctions of Grenada, or sections of Grenada, I should say, including business people and lawyers, are sacrificing moral leadership in their quest for money and access. And some of them will do whatever it takes to protect their territory. Grenada is in deep trouble. In conclusion, sanitizing the nation is urgently needed. Grenadians just ought to reflect on the corrupted nations and leaders of the world, and their history will show that the end result is usually a country plagued with increasing poverty and rotten public services, including poorly run medical facilities, bad roads, unhealthy schools, and more. It is up to fellow Grenadians to do something about it or feel the consequences. That, folks, is the text of an article which was published last night, written by our friend, Mr. Ray Roberts. Okie doke. Ooh, 9:15. Ooh, boy, you guys are active this morning. We've said hi to TF, Fitzroy, and Donna. Michelle is saying good morning. Hi, Michelle. John is reminding us it's regatta weekend in Carriacou. Yeah, John. Hope you learned to swim between now and the end of the regatta. Anthea Rullo is saying good morning, everybody. Peter Bishop saying good morning from Long Island. Kipling Francis says, good morning, all God's blessings. Good morning, all. God's blessings to all. Please share so that others will know that not all Grenadians are dumb, okay? Hello, Margaret. Margaret is saying good morning as well. Good to see you, girl. She's wishing you a happy Friday. Arthur Langine is saying good morning, Brother George. I can't wait. To the goodly lady, I remembered your husband very well. My husband? Nah, Margaret's husband. And that's not Margaret Francis, that's Margaret Hughes. Yeah. Interesting chat we had, Arthur, so hang in there. Spice Babes Duncan sending blessings to everyone. Kipling says, thanks to all those who pray for me. By God's grace, my PSA is now down from 21 to 7 in June. Hey, 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 hey. The power of prayer. Kipling. And down to 4 now in August. Thanks again to all. Donna Joseph says, Gigi, the youth minister is very religious Christian woman. She in church every Sunday, ministering, but she wouldn't stand up to the PM and condemn the corruption because she is part and parcel of that mess. Sad to say, Donna, but that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Michelle Forsyth is asking, can a leopard change its spots? Yeah, I hear you. Margaret is happy to hear that Kipling's doing a lot better. And Bernard Gilbert's all eyes and ears. Anthony DeRigg says, good to hear, Kipling. Pumpkin seeds and cucumber blended will also help. And the tablet called Tamsulosin, HCl 0.4 mg capsule. Anthony, you're becoming very medical here this morning. John is saying, going into a building doesn't make you any more a religious person than me. My church is inside of me. Amen, John. Margaret says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven will enter. Margaret, you make me so happy, girl, to hear you quoting from the Bible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know that passage very well. T.F. Richard says, George, I have said it before, and I would say it again. We are blaming the wrong person for the cell phone gate episode. Unless we ask Keith Mitchell to state the package given to Sheldon Scott, Keith runs his government self-handedly. The only reason Keith is embarrassed is not because of the exorbitant bill, but because the public got to know. General feeling out there, TF. TF says, tell Stone that history always repeats itself. Who was it, Gem FM? Gem, was it Herbert Blaze who said, what goes around, comes around. Anthony says, regarding corruption in Grenada, how come we don't hear of resignations as is common in the U.S. when corruption is uncovered? Anthony, that is the big issue here in Grenada. You don't hear people people in government getting prosecuted. You don't hear people going to jail. You don't hear people resigning. Nah. That's why many of us believe that this has become a lawless country. There's some who will argue with that. I don't know what else is needed as evidence. I really don't. Roger Mitchell is saying, hello, Roger, from Toronto. Say hi to my dear old hometown. And Peter Bishop says, I would love to hear a rebuttal to Mr. Roberts' letter from Dr. Mitchell's surrogates. Well, Petro, don't hold your breath. Okay? Well, Grimms, let's get on here. Take a little break. Come back with the National Report.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply departments and Food Fair supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's Hardware, Food Fair supermarkets, and the Grenadian General Insurance, an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan.
Studying too hard about back-to-school expenses? Co-op Bank is making back to school as easy as 1, 2, 3. Enjoy competitive interest rates, affordable monthly payments, speedy decisions on applications. Come in and apply today.
Welcome home.
Mr. Watts, wait. Why are you removing my sign?
Sorry, Larry, but you can't put the sign on an electricity pole. That is an accident waiting to happen.
Mr. Watts, man, I just finished this new house. I need to put up a sign so that people would know that the apartment is for rent. Why can't I put my sign on the pole?
Larry, you should know better. Think about it. Nails, staples, glue, and signs make it difficult for linesmen to quickly and safely climb poles, and it can delay their response time when there is an emergency. These objects can prevent linesmen responding as quickly as they should in an emergency.
You know, I've never thought about those things. But you're absolutely right.
On top of that, Larry, your sign was covering the pole identification number. What if someone needed to report a fault? The pole number tells Grenlec exactly where the problem is and allows them to respond faster.
Whoa, I really didn't consider all these things, you know. Come, let me help you take this down.
Remember, be safe, be smart. No more signs, banners, or posters on electricity poles.
GRENLEC, energizing our Grenada.
All right, Peter Bishop, just before I get into the national report, Peter Bishop says here, there are no resignations because Grenada is a banana republic. Something like that, sir. Hate to say that about this country, which I so dearly love. I love my country. Jem, the Sheriff Kelly says, I've been around the church for a long time, and I have seen the most unrighteous in the churches. Religious politicians are no different. Yeah. John says they both hate the same traits. The collection plate going around. All right. GIS.
RGPF committed to ensure Carnival 2019 is peaceful and safe. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Thursday, August 1st, I am Rakisha St. Louis. The Royal Grenada Police Force will next week outline its plans and operations to ensure a safe and secure environment for Carnival 2019. The plans will be outlined at a briefing to be hosted by Acting Commissioner of Police Edwin Martin on Tuesday, August 6th at Police Headquarters. The RGPF says it will also discuss other relevant security issues associated with Carnival, as well as provide information on crime statistics for the first half of the year. A wreath-laying ceremony to commemorate the 181st anniversary of emancipation was held at Melville Street on Thursday. The celebrations was held under the theme honoring our African ancestors, freedom, a right, not a privilege. The blessing at the Market Square was done by Bishop Clyde Harvey, which was followed by the reading of the proclamation by Aquino Romain. The bishop says this is a time to reflect on what has been done for us.
You are not truly free until you pay a price for it. You are not truly free until we recognize, as we will just now, the fact that some people died so that we might be free. And as you think about that, it is also important to remember it's not freedom from. A lot of people like to say, yeah, we're free, we're free, we're free, and shake the tail, but they don't shake their head and they don't shake their heart. Unless you can honestly say, I am struggling and I know what it is to struggle for my freedom. I know what it is to defend my freedom from time to time, then you're not truly free. And the great philosophers of our age tell us one thing: freedom is freedom to, not only freedom from. And therefore it's important that we ask ourselves, what am I doing with the freedom that I have?
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Youth, Culture, Sports and the Arts, Ms. Desiree Stephen, says our culture has arisen from our ancestors and has been passed on from generation to generation.
Cultural heritage keeps our integrity as a people and gives us a sense of identity. The concept of cultural heritage is a legacy of the physical architecture, the buildings, the monuments, the work of art, the written text, etc., as well as the intangible attributes such as the folklore, the traditions, the language of our society that are inherited from past generations, maintained in the present, and bestowed for the benefits of future generations.
Pan Ossia will be the first of 9 on stage in the Junior Panorama competition at the Children's Carnival Frolic at the National Stadium on Saturday, August 3rd. Dipping for positions took place at the office of the Spice Mass Corporation on Wednesday. Pan Ossia will be followed by Melody Warriors, New Dimension, Flow Comancheros, Rainbow City All-Stars, Grand Roy Pan Angels, Suzuki Food Fair Pan Wizards, Republic Bank Angel Harps, and Florida All-Stars. The senior competition will take place at the National Stadium on August 10th. Appearing first in the senior category is Republic Bank Angel Harps, followed by Rainbow City All-Stars, New Dimension, Suzuki Food Fair Pan Wizards, Florida All-Stars, Flow Comancheros, Pan Lovers Symphony, Grand Roy Pan Angels, Pan Ossia, and closing out the show is Melody Warriors. Meanwhile, George F. Huggins and Company Limited has presented a check valued at $27,000 to the Spice Mass Corporation, a substantial contribution to the cultural festival. Corporate Marketing Manager Najuma Francis Patrick says the company's continued support is guaranteed in the preservation of Grenada's culture.
Huggins is once again pleased to partner with SMC for Spice Mass 2019. As a proud Grenadian company, we see the need to continuously invest in our culture, and so hence the reason that we have partnered with Spice Mass over the years as a proud partner to ensure that we see the culture grow and develop.
Huggins once again will also sponsor the road match winners for 2019.
Over the season, our patrons can look forward to a number of specials from our brands associated with Carnival. So for example, at the Children's Carnival Frolic, we'll have a Huggins booth with a number of different kid-friendly products, as well as Queen Show, Soca Monarch, and so. Lucozade, which is a brand distributed by Huggins, is the official road march sponsor of King, road march sponsor for the drink. So Lucozade is the official energy drink of Carnival, and we proudly sponsor the road march winner in terms of cash prize of $10,000.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Tune in to the Government Information Service on Friday, August 2nd for a live broadcast of the quarterly address by Honorable Kindra Maturin Stewart, Minister for Carriacou and Petit-Martinique Affairs and Local Government and Legal Affairs. She will touch on issues like infrastructure development, smart hospital, regatta festival, low-income housing, and SVGA operation. The live broadcast begins at 10 a.m. on Friday, August 2nd.
Welcome back. The Department of Economic and Technical Cooperation says a change in behavior will help cushion the effects of climate change locally. On Thursday, members of the media were given a clearer picture of the likely outcome if action is not taken soon. The Department of Economic and Technical Cooperation and GIZ engaged media practitioners on the importance of their role in educating the public on the severity of the situation. The concern for the organizers is although much is being done at the national level and there is financing from the Green Climate Fund, Germany and the government of Grenada, there is still a lot more to be done. Grenada receives up to US $1 million grant per year from the Green Climate Fund. Head of the Economic and Technical Cooperation Department, Titus Antwine, says the focus is to encourage behavioral change.
Not just the happenings locally, but also the international developments that has relevance to climate change and how Grenada is impacted, etc. We see it as very critical because as a government we can't do it alone. The media must help. At the end of the day, what we are trying to do ultimately is to encourage behavioral change in terms of how persons go about the day-to-day business, in terms of how they impact the environment and how they play a role in the whole issue of climate change.
It is the hope of the department and experts that the partnership with the media will deepen as the need for the dissemination of information on climate change becomes urgent.
We'll share the various necessary links, etc. So and the contact, and the hope is that as things progress, because as the climate change landscape continues to evolve and new information comes about, we expect to keep the engagement and keep it going ever so often. We meet and we update the information, etc. And we are here at the disposal of the journalists today, the media workers today, so that they can get from us, well, not necessarily the government per se, but the government hired specialists. Today we are being facilitated by an expert on climate change in the person of our very own Mr. Leon Charles. And hopefully we can continue with these kind of engagements over as necessary.
Some of the effects include the increase in temperatures, rise in sea levels, and reduced rainfall. Finally, Grenada has begun advancing its food-based dietary guidelines, a key tool to drive nutrition education strategies for the public. As we hear in this report from Mina Booker, the Public Relations Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands, the multi-sectoral approach has been taken to review and make recommendations.
Guidelines, FBDG, were developed in a process led by the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council in collaboration with the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, the Institute of Nutrition of Central America and Panama, and the Caribbean Food and Nutrition Institute, and is an initiative that the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands supports. Grenada began the process back in 2006 when it first published its food-based dietary guidelines, taking into consideration data relating to mortality, food production, food consumption, and nutrition status. In an effort to further develop the guidelines, the Food and Nutrition Council opened a workshop at the Public Workers Union on Tuesday 30th, facilitating healthcare professionals, policymakers, nutritionists, community leaders, media, educators, and other members of the public. The sessions are aimed at reviewing the results of the field tests of messages and graphics, selecting feasible recommendations to be implemented by the population, and to prepare the first set of messages and define content of the basic educational materials for the FBDGs. Ms. Veronica Molina, Food and Agriculture Organization consultant who is assisting the national team with developing the methodology, says one of the overarching goals is to encourage better eating patterns.
What we are trying to do is to help people to do better choices regarding food. As you know, there is a real health problem among the population, not just undernutrition, but our main problem is obesity and chronic diseases. And all these problems become from bad food choices and also lack of physical activity. What we are trying to do is to give the population practical messages to help them to do better choices with the food available in their own local context. That's why we are using a lot of ethnographic studies to understand what people believe, think, and what people can do and what people cannot do. Because as technicians, we know what is better for the population, but we also want to know if they are willing to follow these recommendations.
Stephanie Lewis, consultant for the food-based dietary guidelines, said one of the accomplishments would be the development of different material for the population on dietary guidelines.
And that workshop is for us to put together some results from a focus group to finally come up with some messages for the food-based dietary guidelines. So what we would do is to break off into groups that will take the first 4 messages and the second 4 messages and work on that and try to look at the results from the focus group and take that results and put it into the messages. So whatever suggestions that were made, whatever barriers or whatever benefits, we'll take that and use that in terms of for the graphic and for the messages, but also to prepare educational materials for the country. And that would be educational materials for the different population.
While similar updates are being carried out by the Food and Agriculture Organization in territories such as St. Vincent, Ms. Lydia Brown, Executive Director for the Food and Nutrition Council, outlined the significance of having such a workshop here.
This workshop is very important for Grenada. We have dietary guidelines that were set up and launched in 2006, and so it's long overdue for a revision, and the revision process really started a long time ago. But these guidelines are actually, we look at the health situation in Grenada and to see the amount of chronic diseases that we're having, a large amount of it stemming from our the body weights of people being higher and higher as they age. And so the guidelines are actually going to give people an idea, not what to eat, but the proportion of foods, how they need to gauge the different groups of foods and how much of it they need to lessen and how much of it they should eat more of.
During the first day of the workshop, the participants were given an opportunity to review and make recommendations on the results of field tests that were conducted by the Balls Research Group headed by Dr. Wendy Crawford, Assistant Agricultural Officer within the Ministry of Agriculture who represented the 4-H unit. Ms. Anna Abraham is hopeful that the 2-day session will contribute to the development of healthy eating habits.
I'm hoping that I will be able to get some more information as to ways to eat healthy, things to do to live a healthier life, and that we can pass that information on to the children in the schools, in the 4-H clubs.
The review of the existing national food-based dietary guidelines is reflective of the nutrition situation in the country. It would aim to use ordinary language that the general public understands while providing practical advice that is appropriate for local customs, dietary patterns, economic conditions, and lifestyles. The workshop wraps up on Wednesday, 31st July 2019. For the Ministry of Agriculture's Public Relations Unit, I am Mina Booker.
Thank you, Mina. That story just ended the national report for today, Thursday, August 1st. Let's recap the top story. The RGPF committed to ensure Carnival 2019 is peaceful and safe. On behalf of everyone here at the Government Information Service who made this newscast possible, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Alrighty, folks. Alrighty. Look, first of all, let me apologize. It seems like I spend a lot of my time apologizing. I said to you we're going to try and keep it to an hour this morning. No way. We're going to go over maybe about 15 minutes or so this morning, okay? Please, bear with me. It's just that I'm really trying hard to get so much into you folks. So much in. All right. I also want to take the opportunity to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Yesterday morning, I talked about the fact that whenever the national report comes on, a lot of you just go, take off. Well, guess what? This morning, I am so pleased to see that you remained with us throughout the national report. Give yourself a pat on the back. It's important that you do know what's going on. Sometimes painful, but it's important that you do know what's going on. Now, here are a lot of comments out here this morning. Somebody here, Fitzroy Adams, is saying, I'm always hearing about local government in Carriacou. There is no local government in Carriacou. Why are they fooling people who do not know much about Carriacou? Good point. John lives in Carriacou, he says, they need to live here. Then they might. He also goes on to say, he's talking about the health piece that was aired by the national report. He says, with reference to ways to eat healthy, use smaller plates. Good idea, John. I see that Margaret also agrees with you. And he responds by saying, could I charge for being an expert? Now, let's scroll back here for a little bit. Some of this does not apply to the national report, but I thought that they were important enough that I share them with you. So hold on a minute. We begin here with Fitzroy Adams. Fitzroy says 90% of the nation are followers of the churches. If the churches are taking sides, what do you expect from its followers? Good point. T.F. Richard says Grenada is definitely a lawless state where it comes to political and white-collar crimes. Peter David and his gang were quick to chastise Uncle Tilly for being transparent because they were dirty politically, like Keith. Where is Peter's care for Grenada and so forth? Wolves in sheep's clothing. That's T.F. Richards. Peter says, I hope the commissioner will speak about Vacation Gate 2. But I'm not holding my breath, since the Prime Minister said the commissioner cannot tell him what to do. Anthony says, culture these days is jump up and whine to music. That's it. Anthony, I don't even have to go into that one, bro. You're so right. Margaret Francis is referring to the GIS here. Margaret's pet peeve is the GIS. She says, damn, didn't anyone teach these people about transitions and their importance and letting the viewer know that you are moving on to another story? 1 minute I'm hearing about emancipation and freedom, and then I'm abruptly hearing about junior panorama. Sheesh. Don't let your pressure go up. Don't let your pressure go up, Mags. Ha! And John is responding here to Peter. You know, Peter is talking about the commissioner. And he reminds Peter that it's acting commissioner for now. Who will be the next one? A lot of people are starting to ask questions, eh? A lot of people. Oswin has joined us from Newark. Kipling says, don't blame it. Don't blame if I say the PM is stupid. But it's still not nice, Kipling. Still not nice. Remember, he said, any government who keeps taxing the people is killing the economy. And they are stupid. Tillman said he should not be a Tillman, he said, should not be a politician because he is too honest. I remember that. So don't blame me for saying that he, KCM, is dishonest. His own words. Just a few reminders. There are lots more. Franca said it best. Some people listen, but they do not hear. Remember that. And by the way, speaking about Franca, I got a treat for you. I got to tell you, on Sunday morning, Franca is coming in here to spend an hour and a half with us. Haven't seen her long time. Franca Bernardine will be in here Sunday morning, 10:30. Fitzroy Adams says, read that. Read that. Okay, folks, I'm not going to go to a break. What I'm going to do is go directly, because of the time constraints here, I'm going to go directly to my next segment, and I can tell probably wind up about 20 after 10 or so. Anyhow. Alister Hughes, very well-known journalist here. He's been through a lot. Loved this country. He passed away a few years ago. And before he did, he documented his memoirs. And his dear wife, Margaret Hughes, has now put those memoirs into book form, okay? And I spoke to her, I think about 2 or 3 days ago, 2 days ago. We had a nice little conversation, ran for about 20 minutes or so. And I'd like to share that with you this morning. And as you listen to it, I bet many of you will remember your encounters with Alister Hughes. The book, by the way, is titled Alister Hughes, Eyewitness to History. Here goes. Well, folks, this morning, for the first time in many, many years, I have an opportunity to speak with somebody who's been very, very dear to me, she and her husband. You may not know her, but I'm sure that just about every Grenadian knows about a gentleman by the name of Alister Hughes. Alister is now deceased, and he was a very dear friend. Let me say good morning to Margaret Hughes. How are you, Margaret?
I'm very well, George. I'm living in Dublin, Ireland, and next week I'll be 87 years old.
You're doing better than the West Indies cricket team, girl.
Well, Alister, when Alister was writing his memoir, he wept quite a lot, George. And the sentence was, I never let them see me flinch.
Say that again?
I never let them see me flinch.
Yeah.
But, he was attempted on 2 attempts on his life under Gary, and then he was imprisoned by the
PRG.
Marxist. Yes.
Yes.
And he always turned up, and he was under house arrest. He had house searches, and that takes a great toll. So when I met him, he actually had cancer already.
Okay.
And then he had a few strokes. And I think the hurricane was very upsetting for him, especially the looting. And he was so worried about his newsletter, which was his newspaper of 22 years, that he had it sent to Barbados for safety.
Mm-hmm.
And, he was a very strong person mentally and physically, but it took its toll, George. It took its toll. But he was fearless. He was fearless. And the sentence he used was, I never let them see me flinch.
Okay. I remember him as being a very strong person, and I'm very anxious to hear a little bit about the book. You want to share a little bit of what we can expect when we read about that book?
Yes. Well, the point was that at one stage we went to a talk in St. George's University on a history professor from America called Blinkley. He's a very famous man. And he did a talk on the woman who wouldn't give up her seat in the bus. I can't remember her name. And when he finished, he said, and Grenada, you have a very interesting history as well. And maybe someday I'll come back and write that. So when we got home, I said, Alister, where will he get the material to write the book? And he said, oh, from me. And I said, why don't you do it, Alister? And he started there and then.
Okay, so he started writing the book.
Over 3 years, he's writing his memoir.
Okay.
The book.
Yeah.
Now, what happened then was he gave it to a relative to finish it because he was dying and he hadn't finished it. And it went to Canada to his cousin for a very few years, and it kind of nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed, with the help of Alister's friend in America called Bruce Potter, who was the Conservation Caribbean. Alister was a director of that. And we got back, I got it back, because Alister had willed me all his papers. So finally I got it back, and well, look, it took me a while. Now, the main thing I want to say about this book is that it is Alister's writing. I didn't change it, edit it. I simply got it formed into what would be a paperback.
Okay.
So maybe moved paragraphs or that kind of thing, And then I put in the citation from the University of the West Indies when he was given an honorary degree.
Yeah.
I put in a citation from the head of the American Army who headed the forces into Grenada, Colonel Farris. I put that in. I put in his poem called The Caribbean Man, because Alister's main sentence in life was, "We are Caribbean people."
Mm-hmm.
And we need to believe that we live here, we are here, and not looking outward to other powers for affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put in some of his main interest in life was language. And it's called non-standard English, which is what he collected. In other words, the language of local Caribbean people, which is a mixture of French, Spanish, Arawak, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to carry a pen in his pocket and a notebook, and he wrote down 1,000 cards with these sentences on it. You know, what is it, me navel string berry here. You know that
Yes,
one.
yes, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
And he wrote all those down, and they are in the library. Those cards, 1,000 cards, where he collected all that language, it's in the library in Grenada. And I hope to have that published. I'm looking for some university who's interested in non-standard English. Not a dialect, it's not any of those. It's called non-standard English.
Okay, Margaret, you know, I'm trying not to give away too much about the contents of his memoirs.
Okay, fine.
However, I think perhaps one of the things Alister was best known for was his defense of free speech in Grenada.
I know.
Does that come across in his memoirs?
Not as an issue. He, you know that the press were put into prison under the PRG.
Right.
And he was the journalist who was let out. He was free. But they were all, you know, put in prison. The others were in prison. And it was only when Maurice Bishop was killed that he was taken that night and put into prison. So they let him free, they said, because, you know, this is a democracy, Alister Hughes is free.
Okay.
And of course he was the BBC correspondent, Reuters, and so on. So it was about showing how democratic they were because Alister Hughes was free.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he campaigned for the notion of free speech. He was free speech, I think.
Yeah.
It was just so he wasn't. It was only when he started writing the memoir that he was reflecting on all the things that happened. As it was, he just loved Grenada, loved the Caribbean, believed in federation, and his father was the mayor of Grenada for St. George's for about 12 years, and he was believed in federation and went to London about it.
Okay.
But Alister was just lived every day. He lived his life. He lived his beliefs, but it was when he sat down to write, and then he didn't finish that because he got at least 2 strokes. We came back to Ireland twice a year. You know, he did it. The memoir is a summary from the Grenada newsletter, which was his newspaper.
Okay.
The Grenadian newsletter. That's 22 years of a newspaper. And it's up online. The University of Florida has put that up online.
Go ahead.
Everything is coming out of that. The memoir is every day he sat down and he went through that and then he wrote up some of the memoir. And at 6 o'clock every evening, he would read out to me what he had written,
Oh,
as
okay.
he had his first brandy. And he insisted on cheap brandy.
Okay.
He always, anyone in Ireland that tried to buy him a Hennessy brandy, he said, "No, you're wasting your money. I want a cheap brandy." And that was Alister.
There is one more thing. There's one more thing I want to ask you about before we wrap it up, and this has to do with Alister, I guess, being the envy of a lot of Grenadians. You know, a lot of people look forward to receiving accolades from Buckingham Palace, and I understand that when offered to him, he actually declined an honor from Her Majesty.
He was called up by the governor. Tell me his name. I can't remember now because
The
my
Governor
memory.
General here?
Yes.
Was it Paul Schoon?
No. The man who was there during the revolution. And I think he was there when I was there. Anyway, he called Alister up with a piece of paper to say...
Paul Schoon was the person who was here during the revel.
No, it was... I'll think of his name, George.
Okay, go ahead.
Check that. Anyhow, you see, he called him up to the governor's and he had a piece of paper which said, "You've been awarded an honorary title by the British government." So Alister said, handed back the piece of paper and said, "I will take no honour from a colonial power. It scrambles our brains." And then he said to me, "The only regret I have was I didn't keep the piece of paper to put into my library."
That sounds like the Alister Hughes I
He
knew.
was a huge collector.
Yeah.
And all his collection is in the museum in the distillery of, what's it called? The Williams own it.
Mm-hmm.
Up from Grenada. They have a museum up there and all his stuff went there. Everything he had. He said the museum in St. George's wasn't fireproof. So he put it all up to that distillery. You know, the Williams, where they have made a museum?
Yes.
Well, that's where all his stuff is.
Okay.
And his only regret about the honours was that he hadn't a proof of a piece of paper, because he handed it back and said, "I don't believe in colonial honours. They scramble our brains."
Finally,
But
Mark.
I will take any honour from my own people. So he got an honour from the University of the West Indies. It was given to him in Barbados. That was before I met him.
Okay.
And I've put that citation into the book.
Margaret, one final question. You know, Alister meant a lot of things to many people. And now that you have published his memoirs, what would you like to see his legacy be?
Well, I remember, he said it in the end, I put it into the book, he wants Grenadian people to believe in themselves and to stand up and get on with life and be proud of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted them to be not exiled inside themselves, not mental exiles or spiritual exiles, like, you know, post-colonial people suffer from that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they keep on saying we want to go back to London for our titles and our honorary, you know, he didn't believe in that. So he wanted them to accept that they were rooted in the Caribbean, in their diverse history, and accept that and learn about that.
Very briefly, tell me about the availability of those memoirs.
Pardon? Well, the memoirs are with the Mary Show House. They're in Mary Show House now, and they're being given out to schools free of charge. My son got them self-published, and he lives in Switzerland. He got them done there, and they were posted to the Mary Show House, where they've now arrived. And they're selling for 10 EC dollars, and that money will go to books for the University Mary Show House.
Okay.
I think there's a free copy for you, George.
Oh, jeez. Lucky me. Thank you very much.
Diana, that's the one Diana's manager is.
When do you plan on coming back? I understand it's about 3 years.
I'm not coming, George. It's 20 hours from Dublin to Grenada, and I am now too old for that. I have to get to London, to Gatwick, stay the night, and then go on. I won't be able for it. I'm not able for that. I'm very well, but I mind myself, and I would love to be there, of course, with this book, but it's just been posted. So I talk to my friends, I write to them and see them when they come here. Margaret stayed here with me last year. Diana comes to Ireland regularly. So that's it. I read the papers online.
She laughs.
All scandals.
Yes.
And the politics. I'm very interested in all that. But of course, I would love to. I would love to go out to Lassa Jess. And
Oh, yeah.
have him. Oh, I loved it there. We used to go there with Alister on a Sunday. And of course, I can always remember on Christmas, we used to go way up the island to a beach and pick up all the debris, and that was our Christmas tree. We put that up on our Christmas tree.
My goodness. My goodness.
And of course, I loved the drive over into the forest and all that. I loved it. Grenada, beautiful. So that's it, George.
Well, I'll tell you what, the next time Diana and Margaret are coming to see you, ask them to tag me along.
I will, George. Of course. Well, you know Diana's family live here.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, she's coming in August. Her sister, nieces, nephews, and all live in Cork, where I come from.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Huh? I told you. Thank you very much, Margaret. I really, really was happy to spend those few minutes with you earlier on this week. So good seeing you again. And although you may not make it back down here, I am looking forward to coming face to face with you again. We have a lot of good memories, especially sailing on that yacht owned by Olston and Margaret DeRoche. Tim Shell. A lot of fond memories. Also want to say thank you very much to Diana Johannan, who facilitated that interview and made it possible for me to have that chat with Margaret. And not only that, made it possible for me to have a copy of that publication. There's a note here I want to share with you guys from Anthony DeRiggs, and I'm not at all surprised that this jumped out at Anthony. He says here, Alister Hughes was a courageous journalist, the type we hardly see today. He stood up for his belief, and he reported the news without fear. Both the Gary regime and the PRG did not like his style, so they victimized him. He was also an expert on our language. I will definitely get a copy of the book. So says Anthony. And then John Kennison says, and the book's title is, well, tell you what, John, hang on a sec. I'm not just going to tell you. Oh, by the way, I see Sharon Roberts is telling you the name of the book here, but hold on. Here it is. Take a look. There it is. Yes, sirree. It's titled Eyewitness to History, a Grenadian journalist's memoirs. That's the cover of the book, front cover. Take a look on the back. Recognize that guy? That's my old pal, Alister Hughes. There he is. Get a copy. Okay. See what I mean? It's 11 minutes after the hour. And rather than going to a commercial break, I'm going to move into a very final piece here. This just runs a couple of minutes. As you watch this, stop and think. Do you see any similarities between what's going on where this gentleman is and what's going on here in Grenada regarding corruption? Take a look.
No matter how much water I pour into this bucket, no matter how long I wait, it will never get full. Why? The water is leaking on arrival. African nations are like this bucket. Africa has leaks of corruption. And so it does not matter how much tax we collect from the citizen. It does not matter how much donation we get from the developed countries. It does not matter how much we borrow. So long as the leaks of corruption are still there, the visions we have for our country will still remain a mirage. Why? The money is leaking out on arrival. I pity the hoi polloi, that is the simple citizen. Imagine the tax you are paying is leaking out into the hands of few merciless devourers who are using the public funds to galvanize themselves against poverty. Who will help us block these leaks of corruption? Do you think one person can single-handedly block these leaks? I believe it has to be an orchestra of the leaders and the citizens who have vowed to slay this monster called corruption. We see the corruption leaks everywhere. At our workplace, we see them. In our business premises, we see them. But what are we doing about it? Because if we continue this way, we are passing this into generations and the generations to come. It all starts with what each and every one of us is doing on a daily basis.
All right. I just had to get that in there this morning. And by the way, you folks aren't through with Alister yet. Kipling Francis says, there will never be another like Mr. Alister. Fearless. Like him or not, he was the man. Also, another comment here from Sharon Roberts. Sharon says, amazing reading. I can't put it down. Yes, sirree. I thought you folks would be impressed with that. So, once again, it's Alister Hughes, Eyewitness to History. Okay, let me see here. And regarding that little piece you just saw from Africa, John says the higher up the bucket, the bigger the hose. Yeah. Michelle Forsyth says, for years now I've been saying that our new batch of politicians in the region are behaving as the African countries. Think not that Grenada is special. It is worse in Caribbean countries close by. This is spot on. Michelle, I'm glad you saw the value of running that piece by you folks this morning. Peter Bishop says, well said. Let me see, anything else there? No. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to spare you a break this morning. We're not going to go to another commercial break. We're just going to wrap it up right now because it's 15 minutes after the hour. But not without a parting word. This piece comes to you from the first book of Peter, chapter 3, verses 1, 2, 3, and 4. Wives, in the same way, submit yourselves to your own husbands, so that if any of them do not believe the word, they may be won over without words by the behavior of their wives, when they see the purity and reverence of your lives. Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. Check that out yourself. First book of Peter, chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. Now, my turn. Pilgrims, got to ask a favor of you, and I trust that you will understand. Would you please allow me to have Monday off? Got a long weekend coming up. Not only this coming Monday, but the carnival weekend as well, Monday and Tuesday. I would like to not have to do this program on Monday of next week and Monday and Tuesday of the following week. Not because I will be participating in carnival, because I, like many of you, don't participate in carnival. It's just that I need a breather. So please, the 3 days of holiday coming up, excuse me. Allow me to sleep in, go for a little walk. Who knows, maybe even make it to the beach, I don't know. But please, just give me a little break, okay? I would really, really appreciate that. Join us on Sunday morning, this coming Sunday morning, because that's when Ms. Franca Bernadine's going to be sitting here with me. Franca is coming in to talk about, God knows, but I'm sure that the upcoming NDC convention will be on the topic. Pretty damn sure about that. So please, bear with me. Let me see. Oh, thank you, John. John says, permission is granted, Mr. G. Could always count on you, John. Thank you. I owe you lunch, John. Come on down, fella. Okay. My dear friends, you have a great weekend. May our good Lord bless and keep you, and thank you so much for your support and encouragement. By His grace, see you on Sunday morning, and then on Tuesday of next week. Hold on. Kipling says, permission granted. You deserve a rest. Be safe. Thank you, Kippy. Could always count on you guys. So long.